Hello everyone and welcome to a scrapbook layout process video today where I'm going to be creating the front page or the title page to a travel album. Now I have already scrapbooked this photo within the pages and you might recall the layout that I've done with that. I'm just going to bring it in. So you can see I already have, oh my flip flaps are coming out everywhere. I already have done this photo here and I've done the story behind it and subsequent pages on this little pit stop that we made. So what I'm working on is finishing off my creative design team first trip where we went all together to Vancouver and explored a little bit of British Columbia as well. So you're probably thinking, why would I print this photo again when I have already done it within my album? Well, this was one that brings back a whole lot of memories. All of us are together. We're all posed. Even though I messed it up, I should have been probably angled a little bit this way, looking in towards the middle here. But it's one of my favorite photos. We had such a fun time at this location, and I will put a link to this process video down below. But when it comes to doing a title page for an album, because the Vancouver portion of my trip is all going to be in one album, I look at my photos and I try and pick a photo that is one of my favorites to go on the front, or I might do a collage of photos. But this photo here just sums up all of us being together in the one place for the very first time on this amazing trip. Now there's not going to be any journaling on this page because it's going to be the title page, and I wanted to pull this one out too because I really love the combinations of the colors that I've chosen here. And I'll probably use either this alphabet, the alphabet a la mode, or I might go for the block alpha numbers. This is an old CTMH one and I do love this font. It's quite good for titles. So I'm going to leave this one off to the side and have a little think about what papers I'm going to bring in. I'm thinking I'm going to block things a little bit. I'm going to keep this fairly simple and straightforward. I'll probably bring in some of these leaf elements here because I've still got this paper and I've used it quite often throughout this album. I'm going to bring in my Country Woods paper. Now, this is still available. They carried it over into the new annual catalogue, so this is going to be around for a little bit longer. But what I'm thinking of doing is sort of replicating the colours that I've got in my layout that I did over here. Why rethink it when I love how I've done this one? Now, I've taken everything out of here. I'm just going to sort through and find the papers that I used. I used this one. I've used the blue. I've got enough paper here to cut some more strips because this one is not going to be big enough. And then the other one I've used, I just have to find it, is this one here. But I only really want to pick two colours for my front. I'm thinking about doing a blocked sort of look to this. I'm going to make it very easy on myself and use these exact same patterns here. I love the blue wood here. Blue wood is not something that I thought I would really love. I like the more neutral sort of tones or the more natural look, but it works so well with all of our clothes. We're all wearing blue jeans. I've got this sort of colour in my jumper here, although sometimes when these photographs it comes up a little bit purple. So I'm going to definitely stick with the blue. Now I just have to decide if I want this more solid look or if I want the more textured look of this one. So I'm just going to hold it up against here and see what I like the look of. The blue wood is quite a heavy pattern, or a more solid pattern. So this is a solid pattern. This is a fairly solid pattern as well. I will be inking up the edges of it. I think this one works quite well with this pattern. This one has got depth and this one brings a little bit of light to it. If I bring this one in, I'll push this up a little bit so you can see. If I bring this one in, it does work quite well with the railway lines, but I don't think it works as well with this blue wood. So let me just bring this one back in here. I do like how this sort of lifts everything. So I just think because I only want to pick two papers, I have to make a choice between a depth and one that's a little bit lighter. Now it comes to working out my layout. I'm going to have this in the middle here, and then as I said, I'm going to do some blocking. So I'm going to have a full strip of the blue coming off this side, and then I'm going to put this one across here, and then bring in another of the blue to frame it out. So now I just have to decide, do I want this one to be the top and the bottom, finding this a little bit heavy, or do I put this one like this the blue across here. I'm going to rotate this. I am going to cut it so that all the wood grain goes in the right direction. But I'm thinking I like the blue wood at the top of the bottom and this one at the side. I'm just going to rejig these again so I can make my mind up. There's not going to be as much of the blue wood showing because I am going to put my title across the top here and the bottom here. So that would come down a little bit to allow room for my title, and then the piece up here would come up a bit. So I think what I'm going to do is adhere my photo down in the middle. So I want everything nice and centered. So if you have a grid mat, I've got my old Versa mat here. I know that it's 3.5 inches and 8.5 inches. And then, because I use the 6 as my center point, this is a 5x7 photo. And then I'm going to have 2.5 inches from the top and 2.5 inches from the bottom. So I will get out my T-ruler to do this. And then I'm going to put my T-ruler down at 3.5 inches. So I'm not going to cut any paper yet because what I want to do is my title piece. So that is nice and centered. I'm not even matting this photo. As I said before, I'm doing a block style pattern. So there will be a gap between my pattern paper and the photo, and that's going to form as the mat coming through from the back of the page. So now I have to decide on my alphabet, and this is going to all come down to what is going to fit across my page. And I'm not being very exciting with my title here. So I'm going to put CDT Adventure. Let me get all the letters out because spelling backwards and trying to talk at the same time, I just can't do it. So by the time I put in Adventure, I've got no room to do CDT. So I'm going to scrap this alphabet and bring in the other one and see if I can map that out. So I've laid out my alphabet a la mode dies, so I know that CDT Adventure will fit across this page here. And then I'm going to have Vancouver down at the bottom. Because I know this is going to work, what I can do is just start building the Vancouver part and make sure it's going to be long enough because I don't want it to stop before the end of my photo here. So it's just a little bit of placement. We weren't just in Vancouver. This was a day trip from Vancouver on our way to Whistler, but we based ourselves in Vancouver. So I know that the title for this is going to work. So Vancouver does finish a little bit too close to the edge of the photo for the look I'm going for. So what I'm going to do is bring in 2024. And then the 2 will go there. So I think this is going to work better than just having Vancouver. When I was thinking about using the other alphabet, I was going to have Vancouver coming across here. I knew the Vancouver would fit. And then I was going to put 2024 up this side. So now I've worked out what my letters are going to be. I'm going to start with 2 of the pieces of the pattern paper. And rather than having to sort through all the letters again, I'll just put those carrier sheets aside and put all of my letters onto this large magnet sheet that I've got. I just picked this up from one of our $2 sort of variety stores. I've had them for years. I put them out at workshops for the dies that people were using on the day. It comes in handy at home too, because now I can go off to my die cutting machine and die cut out my letters. And I think what I'm going to do is die cut my letters out of this wood paper here. I think this country wood paper will work really well for a title, and it will bring in that third element of the colour that I referenced with this layout here. So now I'm going to cut my paper and I'm going to use this one as my side pieces. So what I need to do is measure from my photo down, and I need a 9.5 inch piece, and I want about an 1/8 of an inch gap. So I need to cut this at 9.5 by 3 3/8. And it should be, if I can do the math right, sometimes that doesn't work, but it should be about the same for the other side. So let me just do this one. And I want to adhere these down because it's going to help me line up my letters when I go to put those down. So 9.5 by 3 3/8. And if I put it onto this side, it's going to be exactly the same. So yay, maths is working today. I never thought there would be so much maths in scrapbooking, but yes, there is, or paper craft in general. So I'm just making sure that I've got my cuts so that the wood grain runs the same way. And as I said, I'm going to ink up the edges of this. And then the blue pieces, I'm going to adhere across the bottom piece after I have put my letters on, because I need to measure what width I want to do for that. I'm not going to show you all the inking of the edges and me cutting out all the letters, because you've all seen me do that before. We have our creative design team 31 days of Christmas card event on right now. So time is important, especially when it comes to trying to get a video up on my YouTube channel. But I really love making title pages, and I realized that I haven't shown that too much in any of my videos on my channel. So I'm hoping that the tips I gave you at the beginning with choosing a photo for the front page, sometimes it's an aeroplane shot or something like that, but I've already sort of incorporated those photos on my first double page spread. So when something like that happens, I look through my photos and I pick one, as I said earlier, that really stands out to me and one that I want to highlight and sort of embodies the trip that I'm on. So I'll just show you how this looks. Now I'm being a little bit purposeful with which way I'm going to put it. This is a bit heavier, the pattern here, so I'm going to put that one this way, and then I'll orientate this one probably the same, because the heavier part of the pattern is down in this area. So I'm going to adhere that, and then I'll come back with the letters and show you the rest of the process. And of course I do have to embellish it just a little bit. So I have these two pieces adhered down, and I've got all of my letters cut out. Now I did separate them out into the top title and the bottom title, because what I want to do is start from the left edge of this one and work my way across, and the right edge of this one and work my way back. So I wanted to put them into two different containers so that I wouldn't get mixed up. So these areas here are going to act as my rulers to line everything up. So let me start with, if I can find the V, and I'll just show you the quick process. What I use is belly art glue. Comes out in a really nice fine tip. Now, a lot of people ask me, how long does it last? So in the 4+ years that I've been using this, I've gone through 2 of this size bottle. Now I've got a larger bottle and I have a refill as well. You don't need terribly much. You can see I'm hardly applying anything onto those. Just a couple of little dots is all you need. So I think with the belly art glue, I can't recommend it enough. It lasts forever. It is stocked now in Australia, and it does dry clear. Now I squeeze the bottle a bit much here. Normally you don't even have to squeeze at all. It just comes out beautifully. So I'm just going to wipe a bit of that away, and then I can go in with my next letter. So even if some sort of smooshes out from the side while you're adhering things, like it has here with my A, I'm just going to tap that off with my fingers, and it doesn't leave a tacky residue here at all. The only thing with this glue, and it happens with all glues, if it gets a little bit hot, it does start to ooze out at the top, but I do love this, especially for fine work like with these letters here. So I'm loving how this is looking, and actually I could probably just leave it like this, which is a very simple design and perfect for a title page. But I do want to bring in the blue wood at the bottom across here and the top across here. So it's a little bit of a shame that my wood grain isn't running this way. I could put it this way like that, because at least these two pieces, they're running the same way, but I feel like I want to have the same horizontal flow with all the wood grain elements here. That is in these two pieces, and also in my title. I've cut my title so that the wood grain all runs this way. Now I'm going to get my ruler out and see about how much I need to cut. I would say 3/4 of an inch might do it. So let's just cut that and see what it looks like. It might need to be a little bit larger. I was thinking of cutting it a little bit larger and then just trimming it off, but we might be right with just 3/4 of an inch. Just going to cut one for now and bring this in. And I think that will work just fine. Actually, I might make it at 7/8 of an inch. So I had 3/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to 7/8. I think that just might work a little bit better with the separation from the letters to match what I've got at the top here. and that works a lot better. What I'm going to do is actually adhere this down and then trim my end off. But before I do that, I'm going to ink up the edges apart from this piece that I'm going to trim off. And then I'm going to measure this one here to see if it is about the same. So yes, 7/8 of an inch. And this one does not have a lot of white in it. So I might just rotate it, because if I cut this one, or do I want the texture? So sometimes I do this when I'm looking at what pattern I've got on here. I'll just close that over. I actually like the flecks of white. And because this is my title page, I just want that to be present in it. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces. And I know this appears to be wasteful, but I can use other 2 strips in another layout. So I'll put that back into my folder, but I like having the bit of white coming through, as long as I take away the right piece. So I want that one and that one. I just want to get the texture onto this page rather than it just looking a little bit flatter. So I've got this piece that I'm going to run across here, and that's got a little bit of the white in it. And then this piece I'm going to run across here. Now I'm not going to fill in these 2 end pieces. I don't mind them being there like that. Now if I bring in these 2 other cuts that I did, they look like the blue wood grain but with not as much texture, and when it's underneath a memory protector, I really want the texture to come out on this page being my title page. So I'm going to treat the edges of these, and then I'll be back to do some embellishing. I've adhered my piece going across the top, and I've lined it up to the edges of these elements here. What I do like about this is that when the eye travels down this gap, it does stop at the R. It's not going to continue all the way through. And of course, I've got a stopping point here for these vertical lines so that it doesn't look like everything is just placed in the middle here. Now I want to show you a little trick with adhering pieces down. Sometimes it's easier to put your adhesive on the actual piece here. I do this all the time when I'm doing card bases and putting a card panel on the top. I put my adhesive on the base layer and then position my card panel on top, and I do it the same way when I'm matting photos. I put my adhesive on the mat and then put my photo or my double matte piece on top of that. Sometimes that's easier to hold this piece up and position it rather than having the adhesive on here where it tries to grab the paper straight away. I could get out my score pal, but I am just going to walk this along. So start one edge and then come across like that. And then all it's a case of doing is trimming off the excess and then inking up this little edge just right here so it just matches all of the page. And I'm really liking how this is looking just with those strips of the blue and then the wood here. I think it just keeps it nice and fresh with the white base wood here. So the first thing I'm going to bring in is the Graceful Greenery and Season of Gold DSP. The Graceful Greenery is a vellum, and I have used these leaves and sprigs throughout this album, and I think it would be nice if I put a few of these elements in. I'm just going to see if I've got enough of these elements. I've got some cut out of old Close to My Heart paper too. So I think this was rosemary, but it will work, I think, on this page. You just tuck that under there, just roughly. And then I've got some in pine as well. So I might just do 2 sprigs of things. Or do I want to run these sorts of trees going across? I'm not too sure. This will give me an idea of how I want to place things and how much I want to put on this layout. I've even got pieces that are the edge of the 12 by 12 paper. I'm not sure if this is going to work though. Let me see. I think that just might be a little bit too much. Maybe I will put this one in here. I do like this colour. I'm thinking it's rosemary from Close to My Heart days, but I can't be sure. I don't think I want to put too much on here. Maybe what I will do is change this around to get underneath. I think I'm going to like it better over the other side. What I was finding with putting a cluster in this area here and a cluster in this area over here, it was drawing my eye to these white spaces. I don't want to fill these in with another pattern paper. So I think having them coming out the other side here is just going to work that much better. And it's going to frame out the ends of these letters. So let's see how I mix. This one is a heavier colour, so I might put that at the bottom. And then I can sort of replicate this from what I've got left over and bring this one in at the top and this one in. Let's remove that vellum piece here and slide this one in. I quite like the fact that these leaves sort of look like hearts. I may have to cut some more pieces out, and these are very big. So maybe what I will do is a little bit of surgery here and cut some down somewhat. I'm just going to follow, oops, if I can hold on to it. Just going to follow where this sort of heart area piece is here and cut away this section of the leaf so that they're not quite as large. I think this might work a little better. So this one's looking a bit funny growing out of here, so I'm going to cut away just that stem piece. I think will make the difference. So don't be afraid to cut your die cuts apart if you're thinking that they're looking a little bit heavy. I'm liking how that looks. I'm going to actually get rid of a bit of that stems to make it a bit easier to handle. I think that's a better size. I think there's just too much of this one. So now I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. Maybe I'll just come in from the bottom here and do this sort of area. So I'm just pushing my scissors into where that sort of area is so that I can just cut away fairly easily those extra pieces. I'm just going to tear that a little bit off too to make it easier to tuck. I really like how this looks because what it's done is taken away those two large pieces. So this heart piece and this leaf here, they're very big pieces and they're both the same size. So I think cutting away part of this heart one just gives it a little bit more variety with the size of them. I just need to work out whether or not I want to put a little bit more texture in here with these vellum pieces. I think that looks quite good. I do want to cut, I think, some more of these sprigs. I think I might cut them in this little offcut piece because so I've managed to cut 4 sprigs out of that little rectangle piece of pattern paper. The matching ones for these, the golden greenery, if you have these, this is one of my favorite sets when it comes to paper and also for sprigs and things like that, because you have standalone dies where you don't have to stamp. You can just cut your sprigs and you have coordinating stamps so that you can stamp them and cut those pieces out, but it also coordinated with some of the paper. I was considering cutting some of these out with the dies, but I don't think I want to introduce gold on this. So I'm just going to tuck 2 of these in each, and I think that's enough for this layout. And then I need to adhere these down. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to take out the piece at the back and apply some glue to it. I don't even need to go totally all over everything, just enough to adhere things down. And then this piece tucks back in here, and it looks like it's coming out from this side area, even though it doesn't extend all the way through. I think this touch of green is really good because it just highlights the photo. So I'm just going down the center of this. I'm going to do the same thing coming out this way. Just lift that up because no one is going to see what's underneath here. The next one I'm going to adhere down is this one. I'm just going to tear that little bottom piece off. And once again, I'm only going to put glue on a few of these elements, not on all of them. It's sort of nice to have a little bit of movement. Even though this is going underneath a page protector or a memory protector as such, it's still nice to have a little bit of movement to these with them not being adhered all the way down. Now this one here, I'm going to take that vellum leaf away. This is a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to put glue and a little bit on the stems, and then lift up my corner of my photo again. I want to make sure that this goes over those areas where the sprigs are coming in that I just cut. And then the last one to put down is this vellum piece. Now I want to make sure that I have the right side up. So that's a bit of a stronger colour now. And the glue that I'm putting on, you could use dot roller for this. The vellum is quite thick, so you don't actually see the adhesive with this type of vellum from Stampin' Up, which I really love. This one I'm tucking in just a bit more to cover sort of the area where those sprigs are coming out from. So I'm just going to get out my mini dimensionals, and I'm going to take the top of that piece off and then put it on the end of my dimensional. And now that it's on my finger, it's just going to, there we go. I'm going to just put the end on my little take a pick tool here. But just putting them on the end of the tool here just means I can lift this up and adhere that part of the leaf down. And that's just going to give this just a little bit more dimension. I'm not going to do it on all of them, just on a couple. So I've got 1, 2, 3, I've got 4 sitting up a little bit here. And I really like how that's quite subtle, but it just gives a little bit of a shadow, especially over the top of other elements. To finish this off, I'm just going to add just a few adhesive back textured dots. These, I think, have been my favourite dots right throughout this album. I absolutely love them. So I'm just tucking them in and amongst the leaves, and I'm tucking some a little bit under as well. So just 3 in each little cluster there. And that is my page all done. So my title page is done. All my double pages are done, apart from a little bit of journaling. I love these clusters. I know it's 2. We usually have 3 on a page, but I just think it works better to have just the 2 here with the way that this title page is set up. And then I've got my last page to do. I don't know if I really want to do the last page. It's a bit sad. It's photos of us all saying goodbye to each other. So that will be the conclusion of the album. Now, one thing I wanted to point out when it comes to doing a title page, I can use this formula for any album, be it baby themed, family, another travel trip, a school album. You can definitely take your favorite photo or one that you haven't used within your album and start with that and make it a 5x7. And then block it in with these pieces and do sort of a split title here. I could have just done Vancouver 2024, but I wanted to put CDT Adventure there as well. And that's created a little bit of white space with the blocking of my pattern papers. I do love it when I decide to use some embellishments and I've got some already cut and ready to go. It makes it very quick. And if I hold this like so, I'm hoping that you can see that adding the dimensionals underneath just a few of those leaves just makes all the difference. I really love how this has turned out. I think putting the lighter wood on these sections here has created the perfect landing spot for these clusters. So I'm going to go and put this in my album. I'm going to look at the journaling I've got to do and work out how I'm going to do my last page. And I will be back very soon, I hope, with the last page of this album, and then maybe do an album flip through of the whole Vancouver trip with these gorgeous ladies. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope to see you next time. Happy crafting and bye for now.